Deb, can you hear me?
Yes.
Is it really low or can you hear me like normally?
I can hear you good right now.
Okay.
Do you have
Last
a stand
week I
mic?
couldn't.
Yeah.
Pardon?
So Scott, this is hooked into my computer. It's one of those Dragon mics. Yeah.
Yeah, that I think we've got to get a new one. So
Yes, I think so too.
I can hear you then.
Then I'll speak like this. That's not awkward.
I don't think it has to be that close, but it has to be a little closer than it was last week.
I think this is how who was it? Bob Barker on The Price is Right used to have that little microphone. That's what I feel like right now.
Yeah.
We are live on YouTube, by the way.
That's all right. People can
See that if they want.
I'm sorry, it says PTech virtual information on our website for a Zoom link. PTech OHM's January 20, 2021 information session on our website.
I don't know.
At 4 o'clock. Is there a link for this board meeting on our website?
It's going on right now. I
Okay.
just sent it to Jean.
Oh, I don't know. Then there'll be 2 things on there.
That's all right. Yeah, I noticed that people were having a hard time hearing me last time, so I want to make sure that people can hear.
Yes.
So I'll try to speak louder.
Deb, that link should be available now.
Okay.
I don't know if Mr. Salerno is going to join us. He wasn't feeling very well this afternoon, so we'll have to see.
All right. Lighting's could be better lighting here.
Either Scott or Deb, can someone share hosting duties with me so I'll be able to share screens later on?
You got that, Scott? Because I don't know. Thank you.
Go up and click that little button to the left of the X. Right there. See that white and chair?
Which one? My mic's off.
Huh?
My mic is off.
What?
My mic is off.
Why don't you have a picture?
I don't know.
Deb, who have we heard from that will not be able to attend? You're muted, by the way.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello. Deb, you're still muted.
Sorry. Mrs. Irvin, Mrs. Hartman, Mrs. Falvo, I believe Dr. Porcelli.
Okay. Have we had confirmations from Mr. Moore and Mr. Stewart?
I believe Mr. Stewart will be here. I have not heard from Mr. Moore.
Okay.
Here's
Somebody.
Mr. Moore.
Right now, check it out. Hi, Mike Moore.
I like how it's a doorbell when they come in. It's kind of cool.
It is kind of cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. And Scott, you had said Mr. Salerno might not be able to attend, correct?
That is correct. He was not feeling well this afternoon.
So if you add Mr. Salerno to your list, Deb, do we have everyone present here who's intended to be here right now?
I don't see Mr. Nelson.
All right, so we might want to wait just another minute, maybe.
Hello?
Hi, Russ. How are you?
Good. Just turn up my volume here. Can't hear anybody.
It could be me, Russ. I have this defunct microphone, so I'm going to try to speak loudly, and it's going to sound weird to me.
New mic?
No, you know, it's been on this desk since I've started, but for some reason, people are having a hard time hearing me, and I think it's this mic. So I can do this, but when I'm trying to, oh, I'm glad. When I'm trying to shuffle papers, it's hard to shuffle the papers, click the mouse,
Yeah.
touch. You know, it becomes a little awkward dance. If I could find something to put it up on. Oh, wait a minute. Maybe that'll work. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So, Mr. Boucher, should we start and see if Mr. Nelson can come in, or would you like to wait another minute for Mr. Nelson?
Is he on the way? Does someone heard from him? He's on the way in, or? No?
I have not heard.
All right, we might as well start. I'm sure he can just jump in, right? So we can start and he can jump in. And do we have a quorum? Will we have enough people?
No, we do not have a quorum.
No.
So we'll be able to certainly, listen, ask some questions, have some dialogue, which was the goal for the evening. But we won't take action, clearly, without a quorum present.
Okay.
I'm just gonna give him a call. If that Gary Nelson.
Thank you, Michelle.
Nice. All right. Well, we might as well get going and then proceed, or do you want to wait a moment? What do you think?
Well, let's wait. Michelle's going to call him real quick. So if we could ask the board just to hang in there for one more minute.
Yeah.
And let's see if she has some information. That would be great.
Perfect.
Hey, Deb, do we know who's not coming?
Yes.
Yes.
Who's not coming? Gary or Sally?
Correct. Mrs. Falvo,
Oh, Miss Falvo?
Mrs. Irvin,
Put you on hold for a minute.
Bond?
and Mrs. Hartman.
So Gary is trying to log in. He was having a little trouble. It seems though he may be just about there. So
I just tried to let him in. We'll see if he gets
So we're
in.
missing John Salerno, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, John indicated he might not be able to attend this afternoon. He's not feeling very well.
So if that's the case, Steve, we'll have 7 members. Do you want to pass that resolution tonight or put it on the next board meeting where there can be more discussion? I think everybody's pretty much in favor of it, but
Yeah.
I would love to see a 12-0 vote instead of a 7-0 vote, but that's just me.
Well, I think they all know what we're talking about tonight.
Yes, they do.
Some
Yeah.
deep opposition, they would have voiced it. So I said, we'll move forward. I agree with you. 12-0 would be great, but if we can't get them, we'll go with 7-0.
I
Okay.
will. This might be helpful too. We're presenting clearly on a concept in open session here, and we will also have to bring to the board in February, should we move forward in our direction, a reorg chart, which will, of course, be added to this discussion and could provide more opportunity for those voices and a consensus vote, 12-0. So that might be helpful to know too, that there's an additional step in February for the board's consideration.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Boucher, I think you have the quorum here.
Okay, so we'll start off with the Pledge of Allegiance, right? I pledge allegiance to the
To
flag
the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right, perfect. All right, and with that, we have no guests and no guest speakers today, so we'll move right on to our presentation, Doctor.
Okay, so I'm going to ask if everyone can hear me. I have a faulty microphone. Okay, wonderful. So I'm presenting before the board today with the Senior Council a division integration plan. So I'm going to share the screen and load the plan up. And can everyone see that on their screens?
Yep.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So this is the Oneida-Herkimer-Madison BOCES division integration plan. And we're presenting to the board the concept of supporting a culture of innovation, collaboration, and empowerment by integrating our 4 existing divisions down to 2 and having them work collaboratively together to create a flatter organization. I just dropped the microphone. But for an entirely different reason than one would normally drop a microphone. And I believe right here is Chris and Scott.
All right, so part of this plan, the goal of this plan, the division integration, is to create a culture of innovation and nimbleness. And, I'd first like to say that we've always been, as an organization, very innovative and we're nimble. But we did it as a reaction to need. So if there was a need, we'd be innovative and nimble as a reaction. The goal here is to switch to be innovative and nimble by design, to set the organization up to be in a position to do that right from the get-go. We want to be targeted response to quick to the district needs right off the jump. Scott?
Thanks, Chris. This plan takes advantage of ongoing changes to our organization's function. It relies on natural succession opportunities, as you'll see moving forward, and includes turnkey training and transition supports.
So, and part of our thinking going into this takes us back to 2014. So I started here in 2014 as the Assistant Superintendent for Instructional Services. A month before that, Ann Turner came to the organization. But if you think about it, since then, if you think about the transitions, we have, I took over from Marionette Danella, then Ken Ford retired, and Scott moved in, and then Tom Dorr retires, and then Mary Mandel comes in, then Charlie Cowan comes in, Howard Mettleman retires, Mr. Boak comes in, and now Dr. Kilbernier is in. So that's a massive amount of transition at the senior council and senior leadership level. What's interesting about that is it's caused, as a reaction to it, it's caused a massive amount of collaboration amongst the senior leadership, Scott, Ann, and I, and the district superintendent. And our relationship have got stronger. And the constant throughout that has been the board leadership. The board leadership has been pretty constant since 2014, empowering these transitions to go seamlessly. We also have an increased experience among supervisors. All the principals that I supervise, for instance, have been here longer than me. So there's high levels of experience at that level. Scott?
And I think you got to highlight the St. E's membership. They are all strong leaders. And without their leadership, this would make this really very difficult to pull off. I think they're a key piece to this and really want to highlight their work. We talked last week about the increased presence of interactive technology. I won't go into detail, but obviously what we're doing right now, right? This is a game changer for not only education, but business in general. And I think will continue to be as we move forward. We are striving to increase communication through the BOCES, right? We want stakeholders to have access to whoever they need to have access on demand. And we believe that's going to only better the relationships we have with our stakeholders. And obviously, acceleration of change in society and education. This global pandemic has done it to us, right? We're witnessing, productive remote learning. We're witnessing productive remote teaching. We have our workforce now that is working from home quite a bit, right? So we've accomplished this all in a very short period of time because we have the technology available to us, and I think this is going to only help us moving forward.
So the idea of integrating the divisions really starts with succession. One thing organizationally we wouldn't want to do is, quote unquote, upset the apple cart. Currently, we've got a lot of great work going on within the BOCES, and we recognize that this is a stressful time of year. So when we look at natural succession, one has to ask what kind of opportunities are there to move toward that idea of intentional collaboration, empowerment, and support. And we see here it really starts with the vacancy in the Assistant Superintendent for Administrative Services. And we move forward proposing that Scott Morris become the Assistant Superintendent of Support Services, still maintaining oversight of information and technology, but now wrapping what is currently administrative services into the same umbrella, encouraging collaboration within that division and across. A second natural succession is a transition with Ann Turner. So Ann Turner, who retired and then came back out of retirement, would move into a position that is half-time and still be with us, which is wonderful. And that would allow us to take components of what is currently program and professional learning and align it with instructional services as one division, reporting to our current Assistant Superintendent for Instruction, Christopher Hill. We see another natural succession with an alignment of distance learning, which is currently housed in information technology, into the instructional programming, as it is an instructional program. And we also look down the road at what anticipated retirements or people who may leave the district over time in the next 2 to 5 years might present. So with some more on that idea specific to her transition and the future of some of the work that Ann Turner does for us, I'm going to move things over to Ann Turner.
Thank you, Dr. Kilburn. And as Dr. Kilburn just mentioned, there have been discussions about the Program and Professional Learning Division and what kind of transition might take place under this new proposed plan. So in PPL, we do several kinds of work, but on one side of the house, we have curriculum and instruction work. And on the other side of the house, we have a lot of educational leadership work, which traditionally I have done. And so I'm very excited about the possibility of continuing that work and separating it out from the curriculum and instruction piece. So we have proposed the Educational Leadership Network at the Oneida-Herkimer-Madison BOCES. And our focus will be professional learning, networking, and mentorship and coaching. And the groups we will be serving: superintendents, assistant superintendents, principals, assistant principals, executive coaches, curriculum supervisors, and teacher leaders. So what kinds of things will we be doing and offering? Some examples are the creation of the Leadership Research Institutes for the superintendents, for the assistant superintendents, principals, and assistant principals, the required lead evaluation of teacher trainings, and the required principal evaluator trainings. Of course, we would be doing training, ongoing training with our executive coaches, and we will continue the virtual meetings and conversations with the groups mentioned above. For example, I do weekly meetings with the assistant superintendent. So that's one of the things that would continue.
So when we talk about the idea of moving from the silo structure of 4 divisions to an integrated model and flattening that out, an aspect of that is to increase the communication and interaction within the BOCES. There are different ways to do it. The first and foremost noticeable way would be the smaller senior council. So in essence, the senior council would exist with myself, Scott Morris, and Chris Hill. And we would intentionally bring supervisors and leaders from the organization into meetings with us, which is not common in the current hierarchical model that we use. Technology has made that very easy. So we have on occasions in projects that we've been working on started to do that, opening up Zoom and bringing in a supervisor from a various department to work with us, and found it to be highly effective. Liking what we're getting out of those projects, because we're working with the people who really have their boots on the ground, who know the components, know the students, know the needs, and can provide us with incredible advice and support. And also another way to bring together communication and interaction is through collaborative projects within the departments and across the divisions. So intentionally pairing groups together. An example of that could be recent work that has been going on with reopening the schools and bringing instructional people together with safety staff, together with communications, to start to put out materials, resources, and new programs or ways of doing things across an organization. There's always intentional physical proximity, but during COVID, not so much. But in the future, we hope that there could be times where we could actually bring within divisions and across divisions people together for intentional planning, along with mergers and consolidations like HR and CBO. But that would be a part of natural succession. So I certainly don't want to leave the board thinking that we're going to start moving people all over the BOCES. That's not the intention of that statement. So here's an example of what an org chart might look like. This is really just intended to give a visual view of what the 2 divisions would look like. So if we look down here, we'd have an assistant superintendent for instructional programs and professional learning. That would be Chris Hill. And those are programs that serve students, teachers, school leaders in BOCES and component districts. So that's programs and services. Over here, Scott Morris would be in the role of the assistant superintendent for support services, providing administrative and information technology services for BOCES programs and for component districts also. If you can see the blue brackets, they're there to represent the new addition to the supervisor's current work. So in this situation, Chris Hill currently provides supports to these departments who have supervisors, and then would pick up this work here, each of these having supervisors also. And it's a little reversed. If you look, Scott Morris currently supports these supervisors and these services and programs, and then would pick up this. Moving on to Chris Hill.
So, you know, two of the goals, when we talk about flattening the organization, we're going to talk about the ability to collaborate more by design and more frequently, both vertically and what we're going to call horizontally. I'm using the words vertically and horizontally because that's the way they're presented on the next two slides. So if you take a look at this slide, it shows the opportunities when you bring PPL and instructional services together. It shows opportunities for alternative education to work with the leadership network, for PTech to work with school to careers. As you can see, there's some integrations and collaborations there. And on the right side, in Scott's side of the house, you know, school communications working with central business office, you know, IT working with HR. So those are the vertical collaborations we're looking for. If we go to the next slide, right? So the next slide talks about collaborating across the divisions. And this is where flattening the organization really comes into play. And one of the, an example of this that during COVID was the virtual academy. So obviously we built a virtual elementary school in a month's time and built it up. There's 204 students in it, 12 teachers, and it's a full functioning elementary school. That required a lot of flattening of the organization. I had to work very closely, or my folks in instructional service had to work very closely with distance learning and IT to get that structure set up. To keep our eyes on the curriculum, we had to work close with PPL. So we had a lot of flattening of the organization, a lot of collaboration of leaders at different levels to make that happen quickly. So that's an example of when you create opportunities by design for this kind of cross collaboration, innovation can be nimble, right? It can happen very, very fast. And the virtual academy is a good example of that.
Continuing with Chris and Scott.
So why is now the right time? And, you know, Dr. Kilburn touched on this a little bit. One of the techniques we had to use during the pandemic is typically in our normal structure, my meetings would always be with principals. And then the principals would disseminate that information to other leaders as needed. To speed things up, you know, the pandemic increased the pressure and the pace of decision-making. We pulled all administrators into instructional meetings. Technology allowed us to do that easily. And what we found is it works, right? We were getting feedback and ideas and roadblocks. We were figuring things out much faster and able to make decisions at a much faster pace with more ideas brought to the table. The second bullet addresses that a little bit more. It's this new reality and opportunities to keep doing this. And the truth of the matter is when we go back, if you think about the slide from 2014, we've been flattening for some time. We've been doing it in practice, but not in structure. So with all the turnover, it has forced the senior leadership to really work vertically, horizontally together to collaborate to keep things going here at BOCES. Scott?
Yeah, and I'll say it again, technology is a game changer, right? You can't do this without having the ability to do so. And I believe technology is that key. I think it's going to be pivotal in how we move to flatten this organization. And obviously a flatter organization keeps more employees engaged, right? We know that. And we want to foster that as we move forward.
Yeah, to that point, in some of our informal conversations about this, we were reflecting on how technology has changed so much, again, back to 2014. So Scott has brought up the power of Zoom. I mean, who imagined that we'd be having board meetings in a virtual environment? But there's a whole Google suite of tools that most of us use in our everyday practice now, where we can actually share work in real time collaboratively without necessarily even having to link up to cameras. So the way that we work has shifted significantly in that time from 2014 to now, just as a result of technology. It's been pretty neat to be a part of that. So then we look at that idea of moving toward a culture of innovation versus having moments where we have to come together to innovate, to really establishing a culture with that expectation through organizational changes. So we look to increase access to senior level leadership And we think that this will bring us some empowerment. We notice that when people can be part of an organization where they have increased voice, where they recognize and see their ideas and contributions coming to fruition, that there is a sense of empowerment that goes along with that. And we do recognize that within individual projects and within the natural succession over time, there are opportunities for advancement or for new responsibilities within existing leadership in a flatter model. And why now is the right time has to deal a lot with that leadership capacity. So when you have a structure as we have, where you have each department within the supervision of someone, you have an ability to move in the way that we are. So when you think of things like school communications, there's a supervisor there that supports that. And the supervisors, as Scott Morris has mentioned earlier, are pretty incredible people with incredible experience and really great insight into the programs and services, their insight now and their insight into where they think things have to go. So in this model, we're really looking to them to give them voice and to trust them in some of the decision making surrounding the future of those programs in response to the connection to the component districts. In addition, we've had several opportunities to conduct some surveys throughout this past year certainly, and staff have expressed a desire for increased frequency of communication and feedback opportunities and to share in innovation and implementation. Societally, that also makes sense as we become more a technology-based society. We see that in ourselves, where we want information in the real time, and social media certainly allows everybody to begin participating. So we see that desire expressed across the organization, and it makes sense for the time that we're in. We also have the increased experience of our two members that we're speaking of now, Scott Morris and Chris Hill, who obviously since 2014 have continued to grow in their own leadership potential and are really well positioned for higher levels of organizational leadership. So when you go flatter, you have to make sure that you're supporting that process, because though you're allowing everyone to have more opportunities to collaborate and some more voice in the organizational functioning, you have to make sure that we don't lose efficiencies, or that we can best support our efficiencies when we're moving from a hierarchical structure into a more collaborative environment. So we're seeking to increase productivity and enhance performance by establishing and implementing a procedures committee. Now, the idea of that, along with procedures coordination, is to create new procedures where we need them, to review our existing procedures and communicate about that and provide direct training and support to the support staff who are responsible for so much of that work. This helps support organizational performance, it maximizes our efficiencies, increases our productivity, especially during staff transitions. And we anticipate that to be a committee structure similar to the board policy committee. This work would be directly supported by a procedures coordinator who works within the existing supervisory staff throughout the process. We have drilled this down to a pretty active stage about who could be on the procedures committee, how that might work, the functions of the procedures coordinator, and a procedure cycle and feedback cycle that we would bring throughout the entire organization. And you might say, well, why is it the right time to do this now? Certainly within any organization, when you're under increased demands, you have to require increased efficiencies. So I don't know that that's particular to the BOCES in itself, but it certainly is true right now for us and true for many other organizations. And of course, we always have new mandates. And there are two examples here on the screen. The Comptroller's Audit and Ed Law 2D require new procedures. And we also have need to go back through and review existing procedures. And we're seeing some of that come out through our new HR CBO combo is starting to discover procedures that they think they'd like us to revisit or enhance. So you might be wondering who will be impacted and how, and I'm sure our employees will wonder that also. So there's two ways primarily that employees would be impacted by this. The first one would be changes to the workflow and who they report to. For example, if I'm currently, let's say I'm Bob Harris and I'm in operations, maintenance and operations, I'm not going to be reporting to a vacant assistant superintendent for admin services position or currently Tom Dorr. I would be now reporting to Scott Morris. So that would be a change for me. And certainly some people might have additional job responsibilities. So I put together a few examples in the bullets below. PPL, that division would now be reporting to Chris Hill. Employees in the current admin services division would report to Scott Morris. Scott and Ann would be transitioning from their current positions. And so some of the responsibilities they've previously had may have to be modified or reassigned. And both assistant superintendents, meaning Chris and Scott, will certainly have increased responsibilities. However, beyond that, much of the organization will remain largely unchanged, which I think is good when we consider not only the shift, but our current circumstances and where everybody is in kind of processing and taking on new things. So here's an example turnkey timeline that we're hoping to move forward with Scott Morris doing direct turnkey training with Tom Dorr. Tom would be here into April, and he and Scott would really focus on the BOCES in-house financial operations aspect. Scott is really fantastic with budgets and deals with millions and millions of dollars in budgeting in technology. It's just now applying that lens to the in-house financial operations of the BOCES. And January through June, Chris Hill to work closely with Ann Turner to focus on the alignments of PPL division with instructional programs. Also, the procedures coordinator, getting that stipended position up and running, beginning the collection of review of procedures and starting to establish the procedures committee and the procedure cycle. To show a visual, if you look at the top row here, you'll see the 4 separate current divisions that we have. And you begin to see the new divisions coming in. So here's the Division of Support Services. This is Scott and Tom working closely together. I'm trying to move, excuse me, I have to move this down so I can see the screen better. In January, and then you start to see them into late March and April working together closely. Then you start to see where Scott will be taking on more of the work, as will Chris, and then receiving direct support in that work from Ann Turner and also from Tom Dorr as a consult. And then over the time from May and June, that increases. And then when you get to July, you can see where we are now within the 2 new divisions. We know that we have to communicate about this across the organization and of course outside of the organization also. So we're hoping that January really be the month of communicating about this. We could take the remainder of the time and really focus on internal OHM BOCES communications and also external communications with our component stakeholders. So the communications department has done a fantastic job and put together a variety of materials, including presentations, videos, emails, documents, and thought exchanges that can launch this evening. And I have an example to show you, which I think you'll really like, but I'll wait till this presentation's over, and then I'll need like 1 minute and 51 seconds of your time to show you a video that Schoolcom has put together. So moving on now into finances, Mr. Tom Dorr.
As you can see that obviously finances were not the primary mover in this operation, this change. There are some ancillary benefits that will impact the BOCES financially. We're projecting after adjustments are made in compensation and taking care of all the people that may deal with increased responsibility, that we will still realize the savings in 21-22 of approximately $115,000. A good portion of that has already been applied to the administrative budget for 21-22, and we're looking at a 1.3% decrease in that budget as a result of these changes. So that's a little bit of a silver lining on top of everything else. I think this is all good, but it's always good to save a few bucks here and there.
So before we go to thoughts, what I'm going to do is escape out of this and take you into a video that was put together by Schoolcom to launch this concept to employees. So I'm hoping you can all see and hear this.
Over the last year, the global pandemic has been an unprecedented challenge with impacts on all of our lives. But it has also shown where we are strongest and where there are new opportunities for the OHM BOCES. It proved that we work best when we work together. We are working with more innovation, collaboration, and flexibility than ever before. making sure that employees have a voice in what we do and opportunities to share their unique perspectives. There will be expanded access to senior administrators, more opportunities for empowerment, enrichment, and responsibility, and employees will have a larger influence on how the organization operates. The new divisions will be the Division of Instructional Programs and Professional Learning, which serves students, teachers, and school leaders in BOCES programs and component districts, and the Division of Support Services, which provides administrative and information and technology services for BOCES programs and component districts. For the most part, jobs will remain largely unchanged across the organization. What's changing is how we interact and work with one another, simplifying how we bring our own projects and ideas to fruition. And of course, we'll work together to serve school districts and prepare all learners for the dynamic worlds of today and tomorrow. We are better together. We are OHM BOCES.
So I bring you back to this, and I think we'll stop the screen share. And the last slide said, so I'd like to turn this over to Mr. Boucher and the board.
Very good. All right. So this is where we have an opportunity to ask questions, correct?
Correct.
So I'll open it up. I'm a talker, so I don't want to go first, but anybody on the board would like to weigh in and ask questions, make comments, go ahead. Would you feel free?
Yeah, I'd like to ask just one. If we could pick some arbitrary starting date for this, well, heck, we could call the inauguration date. Just happen to think of that word.
Yeah.
Maybe 6 months later, put a pin in the calendar for you guys to come back and tell us how well it's going.
I think that's a great idea. And when we looked at the transition calendar that I showed, where we had the blocks getting bigger and bigger as we went from 4 to 2 divisions, July 1st was the hopeful that we'd be fully integrated then. So why don't we plan an update in the summer on how the integration went and then what our next steps are.
Great. Great point, Mike. Somebody else?
Sure, Steve.
Yep. Hi, Tony.
I just want to make sure my mic was on. I just had one question, but I want to reiterate what I said last week. I think the timing is perfect, as Dr. Kilburn referred to, but the quality of leadership we have right now, the consistency that they've proven themselves over time is a great attribute right now, and I think it's a perfect opportunity. I like the game plan, and I respect the individuals and the leadership roles that they're going to be placed in. One question I have is the procedure coordinator or this procedure committee.
Yep.
We have quality leaders that we refer to with Chris and Tom and Ann and Scott. I don't know what we need a committee for or a coordinator for. We want to go with their leadership and their direction. I'm a little hesitant about a committee driving decisions that they may not be in favor of. And I just worry about that. That's all. And I don't know how it would come to play here.
I think you have an excellent question. Let me share with you because this might help. So I have here, because we're working on this organizationally. So let me show you this to help explain it. So the idea would be to set it up like the board's policy committee. And if you look here, unfortunately, I have this thing set up professional audio. Let me try to get, okay. The procedures committee would work a lot like our existing policy committee, Tony. So what we would have here is the senior council would be sitting on it. So this would be Scott, Chris, and I. We oversee the organization and lend that lens to the committee. The senior supports of the staff, the support staff that work with the senior council would also sit to review the procedures because they would represent the viewpoint of those who implement the procedures. So for example, Chris may have a real whiz banger of an idea and be like, this is a great procedure. And then come into the conversation and the support staff representatives might say, it's great, but well, we're going to need a new computer program in order to make that work, right? Then down here, we're going to see if we can have someone from our existing policy service sit the committee. Like we do in our policy committees, sometimes we have an attorney sit to give us the legal perspective on the procedures and how they relate to existing board policy. And then the guest is whoever the policies would impact. So for example, when we're looking at, let's say, policies that relate to the hiring of people, we would want our human resources leader right here with us, Margarita Monero. So you would see Margarita here with the senior counsel, but we're bringing these voices, right? Because we need the legal aspect and we want the support staff aspect. The second question you asked is a great one, and it's why would you want a procedures coordinator? So this is kind of the nitty gritty, but the procedures coordinator is built to really walk a procedure through an organization. So what we don't find ourselves in is the situation where we as the leaders say, this is the new procedure, we hand it out, and it may or may not be working right. People might need direct support or indirect support, and the procedure gets lost. So this person convenes the procedures committee. They help develop the agendas, working with the senior counsel. They get everything in order. When the meeting is conducted, they coordinate all the minutes. They initiate the next step and take that written drafted procedure into the senior counsel directly. The senior counsel directly would review it and say, okay, the procedures committee, which they're on, recommends the following procedures, what training might be needed, what timeline should be attached to that, what additional supports are needed. Then that gets communicated out. So the procedures coordinator takes it from the senior counsel, disseminates it on behalf of me, so it's really coming from my voice, out to the organization, and then builds in a survey so that those who are initiating the procedure actually can provide feedback about whether it's effective or if they need no support. The coordinator gets that feedback, brings it right back up to committee, or drives it right back into senior counsel. So I hope that that helps explain the role of a procedures coordinator. So this is not a committee that's telling the leaders what to do. It's a structure that's there.
That's the point I was worried about. That,
Yeah.
you know, are the administrators going to be, are their hands going to be tied on some recommendations? And
Right.
I wouldn't want to put them in that situation. But thank you. You explained that. Thank you.
Yeah, can I ask about that too?
Yes, you may.
Okay, my interpretation of what you're saying is that the whole idea is to get everybody involved in trying to figure out what the procedures should be to make them really good procedures. But the ultimate control is always with you.
Correct.
And with the senior counsel.
Yes.
So this is just an idea of getting ideas to bubble up.
Yes.
But my real question is will there be a procedures manual?
Yes, there will. It'll be a living, you know, it's funny.
Yeah.
Some of the research we've been doing has been talking about how procedures in this day and age really should be a living document. So talk about technology coming in at the right time, because we have all sorts of programs that allow us now to be in a space where people could be working and advising on one document together in more of a living document arrangement. So I think that's a good thing.
But again, to go back to Mike's point, all of these procedures are based on the policies that the board approves.
Correct.
So do certain policies need to be reviewed prior to going into
procedures?
So that our policy committee and the board, obviously after this happens, has a lot of work to do in regard to reviewing policy. And I would also have to assume that there's not a lot of procedures already out there.
Well, there are. So, you know, when you think about things like, for example, when we look at the hiring of someone, you know, having to put in a request for a position, and then going into getting the approvals on that, and then the posting and the hiring, that whole process is made up of various procedures. So, but they're not all memorialized, and some need to be revisited. And what we don't have is a unifying process on how that works through our organization. We do have a unifying process on policy. So to your point, Russ, we're going to be looking at the policy schedule, how the policy committee reviews, and that will move over to procedures. So for example, if the policy committee is reviewing the 6,000s, the policies, as they review them, that will then, the procedures coordinator will work with Joanna Keeler, grab the policies that have been reviewed by the board, And once they're adopted by the board, bring them over into the procedures committee to start looking at them and saying, does this affect any current procedures that we have? Does it require the building of a new procedure? Is there any way to make sure we support that? So policy is going to be one way that we bring procedure review in, and that's going to be perpetual. So we're always going to make sure our procedures are in alignment with policy. But also practice will bring up the need for policy. So as we're engaging in our practice, we might discover, oh, we need a new way to communicate. We need a new communications policy about X, Y, or Z. So the practice that we're in will also generate procedure. And what's nice about that is by involving support staff into that procedures committee structure, as they're working, they're going to realize, yeah, it's so frustrating. I have to keep picking up the phone and reminding somebody just to add this to a memo. Can we add a procedure on just memos and what the expectation is for the structure of a memo within the organization? And we might very well be able to do that. So this way, by bringing people together, we can begin to look at procedure based on policy and procedure within practice.
Okay, thank you.
Another comment, if I can have the floor for a second. I know this is obvious to you, but I'll just kind of cover it. The policies have to be carefully indexed so that the people that need them can find them carefully.
Yeah.
Find them efficiently. But you also need two things. You need to have some kind of rationale in there to explain why they are the way they are, plus cross-references to dependent policies and dependent procedures.
Correct. Yes, excellent point. And you are right on the money with that.
Very good.
And
Gary
we'll-
Nelson? Gary Nelson, you're a process guy. Do you have a comment or something to weigh in on this process?
Yes, this is a procedure we've done forever in business. It's best
Right.
practices. There's a whole bunch, I was just trying to look it up right now. It's something 9,000 business practices. They set this all up very formally. We took the same process and did it informally as a best practice policy, doing exactly this. And it's instrumental because every time we did something wrong, a job got screwed up, we went back to the book and said, okay, what policy wasn't followed? And there always was a policy that wasn't followed. You walk away unless you keep reviewing and keep on it. Also, they get dated. You wind up, that's not how we do it anymore, but we haven't updated our practice, our policy. So nobody knows what's going on unless you keep this constantly updated. So yes, I'm just very much in favor of doing this. We should have been doing this all along.
Great.
This has nothing to do with the structure of the company
Right, absolutely.
or the school. It is simply a best practice procedure.
Thank you for that. I know that's in your wheelhouse. I know you wanted to weigh in, I'm sure. How about Charlene? No, Charlene's not here. How about Doreen or Michelle? Does anybody or else want to weigh in on any of these issues or the presentation?
It sounds really good, Steve. I'm encouraged.
Yeah. I think the time is right because of the strength of the team. If we had a weaker team, you could never do this, but I think the time is right. And then once it takes hold, they can continue to develop future leaders in their team and bench strength.
Yep.
Michelle, we want to make sure you have an opportunity to weigh in as well.
Okay, well, I don't want to eat up too much time here, but it definitely sounds like the idea was spawned and then it was just bloomed into, what we see today. So I applaud everyone that's had a hand in the restructuring and the honest conversations, because something like this doesn't come together with people being afraid to share their thoughts. So I applaud the admin team. I applaud, Dr. Kilburn for setting an environment where everyone feels comfortable sharing. So I'm excited to see how this all evolves into July. So thank you.
Perfect. Well, good. And Rush, you had a chance to weigh in a little bit. Do you have any other comments or concerns or questions or additions?
I don't have any concerns at all. I agree with Tony and Michelle's comments. I don't need to re-say those, but yeah, it's well thought out and put together well. I agree with Gary that the procedural thing, probably slipped away from us over the years, and this is the right thing to do, no matter what direction we go in with the positions. But yeah, no, appreciate the effort and the collaboration. So.
Okay, great. Dr. Kilburn, so where do we go next? Do we want to make a motion, or how would we proceed here?
So what we have before the board for their consideration is a green sheet item asking for a motion regarding the division integration plan. I do also bring to the board's attention that at the February meeting, we anticipate providing a different org chart than we currently have. We reflected some of that within this presentation, so there'll be more opportunities to continue the conversation and to add some additional voices to this. So Mr. Boucher, it would be a motion on the green sheet if you'd like to.
Okay, so I would like to make a motion to approve the division integration plan for Oneida-Herkimer-Madison BOCES. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Nicotera and second by Mrs. Corbin. It's hard to tell on Zoom. Okay, discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Mr. Boucher, I had one comment.
Sure.
And I know Dr. Kilburn referred to this at one of our previous meetings. But I think the board needs to consider the fact of we need to retain these individuals. And there needs to be a compensation package that makes them, I know they're committed, but we need to keep them. And I think you made a comment just earlier. We just don't want to put a game plan together and then have to change personnel a year or two down the road. So I think we need to make a commitment to this team and to follow through with it, with a package that's going to keep them here to see this process through.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Great comment. Okay, Dr. Kilburn.
That's all she wrote.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Nope.
Michelle.
Moved by Mrs. Anderson, second by Mr. Nicotera. So meeting adjourned. Thank you very much, folks. Thank you. And great job, everybody.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a nice evening.
All right.